$27,000. That is how much debt I had to pay back after I graduated college. $32,000. That is how much debt I would have had to repay had I decided to do it over a 10-year period because of a little thing called interest. Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Leanna if you're new, and in the past 3 years alone, I have not only been the brokest I've ever been, but also the wealthiest I've ever been. And when I graduated college, I had no idea what the hell I was doing with my finances, and neither did any of my peers. Financial education in this country is so bad, and on top of that, nobody really wants to talk about it because money is such a sensitive topic. Both not having money and having money had such huge impacts on my life that money, it just eventually became such a interesting conversation topic to me. And so that's why I decided to create the Young People's Money podcast. I interviewed 8 of my peers to ask them, what are you doing with your money? If that sounds interesting to you, check it out. The entirety of the podcast is on YouTube and Spotify. I'll link it in the description box below. So, student loans. In 2020, I graduated mid-pandemic, and there was a COVID payment pause. In that time, I decided to pay off my entire student loan balance. And the reason for that is because I just didn't want that crippling debt to be weighing down on my shoulders. As of today, October 1st, 2023, the pauses on student loan repayment and interest accumulation have come to an end. Payments are not optional anymore. The Supreme Court has failed the young people of America again, but what's new? They did not allow Biden's forgiveness plan to go through, so we're left with our debt. Tip number 1. Don't ignore it. I know it's super easy to just ignore it and turn a blind eye and pretend it doesn't exist, probably because it's a lot of money and it's probably more money than you've ever seen. But the only thing that ignoring it will do is allow it to fester and allow it to grow bigger and bigger in the background. In my specific example, if I decided to pay off that $27,000 over a 10-year period, it would have been $32,000, so roughly $5,000 more. I know $5,000 over a 10-year period doesn't really seem like a huge deal, but if it's a choice between paying $5,000 and not paying $5,000, I'm gonna go with this one. I recommend checking out this loan calculator on Smart Asset. You can input the balances of all your loans and the interest rates of all these balances and also the time period in which you're trying to pay off these loans in. And it'll calculate exactly how much you're gonna end up paying over that specified time period. And this for me was very mobilizing and made me want to pay it off right away. Because as soon as I saw how much interest I was gonna end up paying, I was just like, hell no. And that leads me to tip number 2, which is pay more than minimum if you can. You know how there are 30, 40, 50-year-olds who still have student debt, and it seems like a never-ending thing just because the interest keeps on piling on and on and on? I used to think that that was going to be the case for me as well. Having debt follow you around is so normalized, but it doesn't have to be. If you're like me, and you hate the idea of paying thousands and thousands more than you actually borrowed, paying it back fast is the way to go. The more quickly you pay it off, the less you end up paying. Tip number 3, allocate every single dollar of your paychecks. Have you ever gotten a paycheck and by the end of the month it's all gone? You don't know where any of it went? Well, that's exactly why you want to track it all. I made a little spreadsheet to make this super, super easy. It's completely free. Links in the description.
Okay, so I'll walk you through it right now. Column A is for your paycheck dates. I just put in bi-weekly Fridays because typically that's how frequently people get paid, but you can change them to weekly or monthly or just whenever you get your money in. Up here, you have spending categories. This is completely for you, so change the categories to any specific bills or expenditures that you have and make sure not to miss anything. You know, like is there something that you just kind of unconsciously spend money on, like 3 boba tea drinks every single week? Like make sure to include those, you know? And then over here, you have your paycheck amounts per paycheck, per pay date. And you can put in how much each paycheck was. It's easy to do if they're all the same because all you have to do is kind of just drag it down. So for example, if on 10/6 you made $2,000, what putting it here will do is load it into your total balance. And then what you're going to want to do is allocate. So you can see the formula here is total paycheck minus the sum of these expenditures. Okay, so I have a $2,000 paycheck. Let's say my rent is $1,500. So I'm going to put $1,500. And in this paycheck, I have $500 left to put somewhere. So I need to put that into groceries for the month. And then bam, that's the entire paycheck. And then 2 weeks later, I get another $2,000 paycheck. What am I going to put it in? I am going to put it in my Roth IRA. I'm going to save up for some retirement. I'm going to pay for my Wi-Fi bill. I am going to get some gas for my car. I'm going to set aside this much for restaurants because I like eating out. And then you'll see over here, this is how much I have remaining after all the bills are paid. And from there, I can decide what I want to do with that. If you want to pay your loans off at your highest capacity, you're going to want to put everything that's left into that loan category. And then that number determines the payment you're going to make for the week. So $1,250. So yeah, hopefully you have enough after all your expenditures to pay at least a little bit more than your minimum towards your loans, because if not, you'll have to find a way to make more income or decrease your expenses.
Tip number 4, don't succumb to lifestyle inflation. So to give an example of lifestyle inflation, say you're making $50,000. You're living in a studio apartment. It's small, but it's fine. And you can't really save anything because after you pay all your bills, you don't have any money left. And then one day you get a raise. Suddenly you're making $75,000. And instead of choosing to start to save, you decide to get a new apartment. You decide to do a 1-bedroom apartment because you've been wanting to upgrade for a while. So now you're making $75,000 with a 1-bedroom apartment and you're not saving. I know that once a little extra money starts coming in, it's really hard to deny yourself some lifestyle upgrades that you've been wanting to for a really long time. But just ask yourself, is getting a new apartment something you have to do right now, or is it something that can wait a little bit as you pay off your debt? This tip to not succumb to lifestyle inflation mainly applies if you are paying off your debt over a longer period of time. So like at least 5-ish years, I would say. 5 years is a reasonable amount of time to expect some change of income at some point. So the idea is to focus on your debt because time is literally money, and the longer you take to pay off that debt, the more the interest is just going to grow and grow and grow. Some things can wait, but some things cannot, like your debt. Tip number 5, gamify it. Turn it into a game. So for example, every $5,000 you pay off, you could give yourself a reward. Make a reward system out of it. Maybe draw a progress bar in your notebook and color it in a little bit every time you make a payment. That's what I did, and it made it fun. The more you can trick yourself into thinking that you're playing a game by repaying your debt, the better it's going to be. So those are my 5 tips. Don't forget to check out the Young People's Money podcast. I also included 5 bonus episodes at the end where I kind of just brain dump everything I know about money. So it's all knowledge that I've had to go out and find on my own because public education sucks. There's an episode for credit cards, one for debt, one for savings, one for investments, and also one for the financial independence retire early movement, the FIRE movement. And if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about my personal relationship with money, I made a video a while ago titled Money, because I'm real creative. I also talk about it more in the first episode of the podcast. All right, well, that's it. I hope this video helped, and good luck. Bye. I'll see you in the next one.